5:32, so I'm going to go ahead and start things off. So thank you all for joining us here today. Again, I'm Paul List with the Northeast Wisconsin Land Trust. Those of you who might not know I advertise this to a larger group in the Green Bay community. So for anyone who's not immediately familiar, we work with land conservation, primarily in the Fox River watershed area. A lot of things in Appleton, Green Bay, up in the Oconto region. We're trying to help preserve land in this area for the sake of watershed health and overall ecological benefit. We're also trying to work to expand the ways we can engage people in conservation, trying to provide additional opportunities and additional pathways that people can become involved in conservation work. So as part of that general process, I got connected with EarthForce, which is an organization that works specifically to engage youth in environmental action through different forms of, environmental education, civic engagement, and other sorts of things. Here today we have Kristen, who's a program manager with EarthForce, and I'm going to let her take it away. She'll give us a brief introduction of what they do and how they do it, and be here to answer any questions you might have at the end of the talk as well. Kristen,
Cool,
floor.
thanks. Yeah, thanks, Paul. Pull up my little slides here. Yeah, hi everyone. I'm Kristen, and I'm, like Paul said, I'm a program manager with EarthForce. Right now, I'm located in Richmond, Virginia, which is a couple hours south of DC, but I just moved here actually from Michigan, and I spent my whole life living around the Great Lakes, and have now found myself out on the East Coast. But so I've been with EarthForce for about half a year now. I started with them last summer, but I was trained as an EarthForce educator almost 8 years ago during my first year as an educator, and then kind of came back around full circle, a few years later on in my career. So it's been really fun to be on the other side of that and share what we do with educators and with trainers who will eventually go on to work with young folks. So yeah, I'll get into a little bit of who we are at EarthForce, what we do, what we're all about, and then how folks like Paul come into the picture. So EarthForce is a nonprofit where I am employed. We've been around for 30 years. It's actually our 30th birthday coming up. I'll give a quick plug for our EAC week. We'll talk about what EAC means next, but Environmental Action Civics Week is coming up April 29th through May 3rd, and we'll have a ton of virtual events, some panels with some young folks and some educators, all talking about the cool actions that they've taken out in their communities. So yeah, EarthForce is a nonprofit, and we really focus on young people as stewards and decision makers with true impact in their environment. But contrary to how youth focused that might sound, we actually don't really work with young people all that often. I do very occasionally, but for the most part, we train adults. And that makes up like 90% of my job. So we train adults of all sorts who work with young people, whether they are educators, like mostly non-formal, informal educators, folks who work at zoos or at nature centers, people who are professional development facilitators who work with teachers and train teachers, and sometimes we do work directly with teachers. And when we work with all of those adults, we teach them all about environmental action civics, which is an educational approach that really highlights that youth voice and that youth adult partnership piece. That leads youth through a process of identifying an issue in their community and then learning about it, advocating around it to get to a systemic change around whatever their chosen issue is. And to get to an experience like that, we have our EarthForce process, and I'll show you what that looks like here in a minute. It is broken down into 6 steps, and that is one of many ways of getting to something like an EAC outcome. And when I say it's just one way, there are so many ways to go about that, depending on what framework people are working in. If anyone is familiar with the MWE, the Meaningful Watershed Educational Experience, those are really big out here, especially in Maryland and Virginia. That is one way to also get to an environmental action civics experience. And at the bottom here, those outcomes, it says, check out the roadmap. And the roadmap is the document that we share with the folks that we train. It's almost like a rubric of sorts to help guide educators in where they're taking their young people. And I'll show you that here in a little bit. So yeah, this is kind of our definitional sheet about all of the different terms that you'll hear me use. So when I say something like EAC, that means kind of broadly the big picture framework that when we talk about it, we're talking about things like uplifting youth voice, working in partnership with youth, and sharing power with young people. And one of the ways that we think about our work in environmental action civics is not necessarily in contrast to the way that traditional environmental education works, but more of as a handshake about putting those pieces together. So in a lot of traditional environmental education spaces, you'll see adults taking on kind of one or the other of these two things, which is they'll decide on a project with their young people and they will take action. For example, our after school, eco club wants to build a rain garden at our school. We're super psyched on rain gardens and we're going to build one at our school, or we're going to make a mural, or we're going to volunteer with a stewardship project. Or they might take the other route of kind of engaging with their environment as an investigation, as like a discovery lens, especially in some especially with younger grades, things like sensory exploration and activating their five senses and getting outside is a really common thing that I've seen, where if you're in a situation with your youth, maybe you're going to do some water quality testing and investigate what you're doing. Maybe you'll take a look around your school and see like, what is the waste situation here? Are we throwing things away? Are things making it into the recycling bin when they should be? Are things making it into the compost bin when they should be? Things like those, like lunchroom waste audits, are really, really common. And so what we think about under an environmental action civics lens is to put all of those things together to make a whole experience for our young people. And so we put those all together by investigating an issue, thinking about all of the issues that we've now accumulated, choosing one of them, really diving deep into what is the root cause of that issue, researching it. And then once we've really got our issue super crystal clear about what it is that we're concerned about, choosing a strategy and then taking action instead of going straight to action, being very intentional about getting a strategy to there. And then finally, that last piece, celebrating and reflecting. So here is the Earth Force process, steps 1 through 6. I always like to emphasize that this is not a prescriptive curriculum. There is very little material, so to speak, in the Earth Force process. It's all kind of framework and facilitation. And so when I was learning this during my first year as an educator, it was learning a lot of those facilitation skills with young people, learning a lot about active listening and how to make it through all of these steps with my young people in a way that they feel heard and empowered, and really lifting out that youth voice and whatever it was that we were doing. I'll emphasize too that it really doesn't matter what you're doing, what your project is, because it's really process over product, or in this case, process over project. Because projects are so often a part of the process, we don't want to overlook that. But especially as we kind of key in on the later steps of the process, which are reflecting and assessing and celebrating, we're really starting to look at what skills did we learn and what skills did we build as we go through the process. So yeah, it's a tool. It's one of many tools that educators of all sorts can use to engage their youth in partnership with themselves as adults to share power and within their community. So I'll talk through this steps 1 through 6, and then we'll get into some of the more deeper like underlying philosophies that go into how I approach training other adults. So step 1 is our community environmental inventory. And similarly to how I mentioned earlier about getting your young folks outside, that's one way to do a community environmental inventory. Step 1 is all about looking at your community and discovering what's out there. Parts of that include talking with your group about what is our community? Is it our classroom? Is it our school? Is it our block that the school is on? Is it our city? Is it the whole state? And depending on the size and the, age and developmental appropriateness of the group of young people that you're working with, that's going to be so different. And again, that's the first piece where that youth voice element can really come through. And when you listen to your young people, you're going to hear what they have to say, and what is important to them in their community will come out. So community environmental inventories can often look like taking a walkabout around the school or the nature center or wherever it is that you are. And there's a few frameworks that you can use to get your young folks kind of in an observation mode about, like, what are our strengths? What are our concerns? What issues are we seeing? What positive and maybe negative things are out there in our community? Who is present in our community? And then from there, we'll move into step 2, which is deciding on an issue. And so this is narrowing that scope of, here are all the concerns that we're seeing. Let's pick one and make it into an issue that we can then take action on. So for example, while we're out in our community inventory, we might notice that there is trash strewn about our schoolyard. And we know that that's not a great thing. Trash everywhere in the schoolyard, not good. But trash everywhere isn't necessarily an issue. Well, sorry, I misspoke. And when students are noticing that trash everywhere, they might jump the gun and say, our issue is recycling. Well, if you take a few steps back, recycling isn't an issue, it's a solution. And so when we're working with those young folks around issue selection, we'll take them through that process of, here's our observation that there was a lot of trash. Let's get to the root cause of that. And so once we've done that, we arrive that our issue then is trash in the schoolyard. And so during these steps, it's really important to, like, again, always come back to that center of gravity, which is youth voice and hearing your young people. And then moving on to step 3 is where we kind of go beyond just that root cause and really dig deeper into the like systematic causes of our issue that we have selected. And so this can look like research, talking to experts in their community, having a debate or a dialogue amongst their group to talk about what's really important to them and how they want to focus on it, and really getting to the crux of the issue that they would like to work on. And this is a really good spot too, as an adult, to acknowledge that there might be a good community partner that you could bring in and work with your young folks and really bring in that kind of community buy-in around what it is that you're working on. Step 4 is kind of similar to step 2 in that there's some selection, some decisions to be made. And so in step 4, we'll take with our young folks more of a solution-oriented decision rather than an issue-oriented decision. So step 4 is all about deciding, what are we going to do about the issue that we've already decided on? And so as far as decision-making as a skill that we develop in our young folks, step 2 and 4 have a ton of resources and things like that that we as facilitators can use to develop that skill in our young people. We always like to call it democratic decision-making. And so those can be things like voting, dot voting, which is like a distributed voting. Each person gets 3 votes and you can stick them on walls and make it a really sensory experience for your young people. Or consensus, where we have a whole conversation and we talk about what's important to us and why. And so all of those kind of accumulating things, again, are thinking back to that educator mindset. What skills am I developing in my young folks? So after step 4, we have decided what we're going to do. And step 5 is all about doing it and planning out how we're going to do it. So step 5 can involve things like committees, committee planning, and in some cases asking for permission of whoever you may need to ask permission of, and then taking action. And this is like, again, if you're jumping straight to project, you have jumped all the way into step 5, building the garden. And then after the project portion, so to speak, of the process is complete, that's where you land yourself at step 6, the kind of wrap up step. And step 6 is all about looking back at what you've done, celebrating and acknowledging all of the skills, all of the processes that you did, and really what happened. And so oftentimes, um, I'll hear from educators like, well, what happens if, we approached our school board about taking action and we got a no? What happens then? Well, then we acknowledge it in step 6 and look back at everything else that did go right, what skills we learned, how we developed as in a partnership, how we shared power. And so it might also mean you go back to step 4 and try a different strategy and go through step 4, 5, and 6 all over again. So that is the quick version of the Earth Force process. That is usually done in like a 3-hour class that Paul can tell you all about. So usually that is much more in depth. And as I said, we have free open source resources on our website that include things like worksheets, educator guides, facilitator guides, and activities for every single step of this process. And yes, definitely, as an educator myself, it was so useful to be able to just go back to the step I was at, grab the resource that I needed before showing up at school. So I'll pause here so that I can take a little sip and let any visual folks take that in.
Is it okay to ask you some questions now, Kristen, or do you want to wait till the end?
Oh, sure. I don't have that much other material. This is really the bulk of my talk, so please ask.
So it sounds like how we would work with you is if we decided we want to do a project with, XYZ school, we would hire you to kind of come in and help run it. Am I thinking about that correctly?
That is not correct, and I can clarify that. So as I said, we mostly train educators and adults who work with youth. I work with young people extremely rarely. And so, like I said, I'm in Richmond, Virginia. And so whenever we have a partner who is local-ish, sometimes they'll invite us to come help us run something. Like, so for example, I helped facilitate an after-school club that was in Maryland a couple hours away from me. But usually how a partnership would go, I can let Paul speak to that too when I conclude. But usually how it goes is we host a training, which is generally free for folks to take. We actually offer organizations stipends to attend our trainings. And then we train folks up on this process, on all of the underlying skills that they need to then go out and work with their young people or integrate EAC into their programming.
I got you. So we would hire you to kind of train people that we designate to kind of help run this process with different groups around our area.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you don't pick the projects. It's always picked by the group you're working with.
By your young folks, yes.
Okay.
And I hesitate with the word hire because we usually don't let people pay us. So
Follow up on that, and I actually did the training that Kristen was talking about back in the
yes.
fall.
Yeah.
So I've been doing some of that training to then potentially help
great.
facilitate these sorts of projects or work
Okay,
with other
cool.
educators.
Yeah, no, it sounds really good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can talk through a bit more about our I don't know, menu of services, as it were. I've got a couple more slides and I can circle back to that.
That's okay.
Then.
Yeah, keep going.
Yeah, thanks for your question. I appreciate it. Like I said, we're a small group and we've got plenty of time to intersperse with whatever might come up. So this is another circle back. Maybe I should organize my slides a little better next time. This is our roadmap that I mentioned in my little glossary slide. So I like to view the roadmap as a bit of a rubric when I'm facilitating an EAC project. I can kind of place myself here. So let's say I'm in the issue phase of the process. And let's say I'm working with my young people, I would take myself along this continuum from just starting out, beginning, getting there to environmental citizen. And I also encourage folks to read the roadmap not so much as a value judgment, like, oh man, if you're just in the beginning column, you're not doing it right and you need to step back to square one, or your project is a failure because you're not in the environmental citizen column. That is not how we intend this to be used at all. We really just encourage folks to use it as an alignment, as a bit of a placement to see where they're at and where they could be going, and to highlight some of those key points and key experiences that we want young people to be having ultimately at the end of the day. And those are kind of pulled out here on the right side in these green boxes. And so from this roadmap, the Earth Force team actually developed what we call our 3 essential experiences. And I think that's my next slide. Yeah, the 3 essential experiences, which if nothing else occurs during your process, we would love for these 3 things to be happening. And that is all rooted in our experience, having done this for 30 years, having gathered input from our community and all of our Earth Force practitioners out there doing this on the ground, and in all of the research that backs up kind of this style of learning and you know why we do this. So the first essential experience is that young people select an issue. Again, that's step 2, select an issue that is rooted in their lived experience. So again, that's that youth voice piece coming out, and that young people are given that authority to pick the issue, that it reflects their lives and what is important to them. And when this is happening, young folks are going to have so much more buy-in in what they're doing. They're going to care about it more, have more enthusiasm over their project and coming to school or coming to after school club or whatever it is that they're doing. So that's experience number 1. The second one is that youth are co-creating their learning environment. And this is that youth adult partnership piece. So we as the adults in the room are taking steps to share power with young folks wherever possible. And so that could look like allowing them power to make decisions, giving them those tools and those skills to make decisions, responsibility when we're doing things like strategy development and action taking when it really comes to it. And giving them that responsibility for things like time and task management, which again, those are skills that we're developing in our young people. So experience number 2 is that youth have agency in being, full partners in what it is that we're doing. And then finally, experience number 3, this one is really the core of that civic piece. I haven't really talked about civics a whole lot, but that is truly the underpinning of environmental action civics. That civic piece is asking for a change. So youth engage with community power structures to ask for a change. And this is where we see in kind of more so step 5, taking action, is that youth are advocating for the issue that they've selected, why it's important to them, everything that they've learned, and they're engaging with power structures, whether that is within their school, within their city or town, or even on like the state government level, to make that change and make it more systemic. And that's really where we're seeing that when young people are having experiences like these 3 in youth in their childhood, that they grow up to be more civically engaged adults. So I'll share an example. It's like our favorite one to share. We call them the mold kids. So we really should think of like a more a better sounding name for these group of awesome kids. But there was a group of kids in Alexandria, Virginia, which is a suburb of DC, who in their school building were seeing mold, like literal mushrooms growing in their school building. And so when they were going about this, they were like, yeah, our issue is mold in the school building. So these young folks took their issue to their school board and were asking for kind of school-wide or district-wide changes around, school safety and indoor air quality. And their school board said no and didn't listen to them and denied them that request. So the students then took it up another level to the state legislature, and they actually got a bill passed here in Virginia, mandating certain indoor air quality levels for schools. And so those students were then advocating for that change, making that ask of power, and really advocating for what they wanted to make that change happen here in Virginia. So I think that's all I've got. That is correct. That's all I've got. Thank you for having me. I'll pause here for additional questions, and then I'll make a note to talk through everything that we offer. And then Paul too, it would be really cool to hear from your perspective how you're using EAC in your work currently, and I'd love to hear too your take on the trainings that you've been through.
Yeah. So we'll go again, like you said, quick pause, see if anyone has any questions. If not, then I'll wander into my little bit. All right, so I actually got someone involved with Earth Force around a couple of years ago or so at this point, back when I was still in grad school. I was doing research on community conservation programs and how to get communities engaged in conservation work. Same time, I was also doing some work with a group of middle school students on invasive species removal. So from both those angles, this was spending time looking into ways to get people in general and youth specifically involved in conservation. And Earth Force came up as one of the programs that is involved in this sort of work. And even just from initially reading about them, everything that I was reading matched with what I was also researching for my thesis. The same basic principles, the same indications of how this actually is successful is what Earth Force, from what I found, is what they were promoting. So started getting a little bit involved with them while I was in grad school, using some of their resources. But then when I started working here at the Land Trust last year, I was able to also do the training that Krista was mentioning before, kind of their official training the trainer training to get kind of that in-depth experience to help people really learn, the fundamentals of the process, what resources there are, and how to go about trying to engage other people in that process as well. It's kind of my hope for our involvement as a land trust with Earth Force. It's kind of twofold primarily. On the one hand, kind of big picture, what I see the land trust being able to do is we were founded as an organization by people who want to make a change in conservation, who want to come together and work together to make a significant impact in the conservation field. And we're still doing that through our land conservation and been doing that for over 20 years now. But, it is also getting to the point where we are growing as an organization and we can do more. We can reach more people and involve them in more ways than just land conservation. There's a whole element of society in our community, youth in particular, but adults as well, who don't have land, who don't have the money to protect land either. So there's a whole wide range of people that we can't really connect with if we just focus on land conservation specifically, because they're not involved in that particular issue. But if we can expand our range a little bit to get people involved in these other ways, other forms of engaging in conservation, we can reach a broader audience and help, make an even bigger impact ourselves in this conservation realm here in, the Fox Valley region and beyond. Something else I like that Earth Force does that matches up with the Land Trust well is they're very strategic about how they go through the process. And when the Land Trust is doing things, we are also trying to be very strategic about making sure that we research our options, that we are targeting specific issues, that we are going to have the maximum impact that we can. We are a small organization, we don't have unlimited funding or unlimited resources to be doing as many projects as might be nice. We can't just jump from one project to the next or just go into a project without knowing if it'll actually work or not. We have to strategically select what our best options are. And that lines up a lot with what Earth Force is promoting as well. They promote not just jumping right into a project, but making sure that you take that time to actually research your issue, make sure it's going to be a good strategy to address that issue, and make sure you're addressing, the root causes of certain issues as well, not just surface level band-aids things per se, but trying to make sure that you're actually doing something that will have an impact, not just, immediately now, but for years to come as well. So I'm hoping that we might be able to do, between Earth Force and the Land Trust and other groups and organizations in our community, being able to partner with, schools, other groups, whoever might be interested, to work towards addressing some of these environmental issues using the Land Trust resources, maybe issues on some of our properties, some of our expertise, and then being able to work with these other groups as well to address these broader environmental issues. We have increasing the way the Land Trust can have an impact and increasing our relevance in the community as well. Past 6 months or so-ish, since whenever school started, been doing a little bit of work with Xavier High School. It's a local high school here in Appleton. They have an environmental club. I've been meeting with them roughly once a month or so, give or take, depending on, sicknesses and vacation times and all that, to try to, start exploring some potential for the land trust working with this sort of school group and trying to implement this sort of earth force process. We haven't, gotten fully underway with anything yet. It's still very much in the exploratory stage, as is a lot of, my work here at the Land Trust in general. Only just started again less than a year ago. So we're still figuring out some of the details of what all we can do, what we should be doing. But we are making some progress and starting to explore this potential of how, the Land Trust could help support this type of process with youth, with other organizations as well. So again, hoping to continue to build off of that, or if nothing else, even just exposing people in the region to what Earth Force does. They might be able to take an interest in it and explore it on their own end of things as well. So that's about my spiel, I believe, what I thought about covering.
Yeah, Paul, I mean, like you said too, I always love to emphasize this, that like you're not gonna get to like full 100% youth adult
Yeah.
partnership action the first time.
Oh yeah.
Like as an adult educator, it's all about like iteration, and like we've got to build up our skills, and we've got to build up those skills in our youth so that they're feeling,
Yeah.
confident, and like they have the skills to be making these decisions and taking action and what have you.
I mean, that whole process you talked about going through with the
Yeah.
youth stuff, I'm doing that exact same thing just on my end,
Mhm.
as far as, what investing in the issues that are facing the land trust in our community, and if, hey, what can I do to address those issues? And then
Mhm.
student to build up from there. So again, it's part of what I like is that it is not a process that jumps right to a project and then tries to go all in on the first project that comes to mind or things. It emphasizes, hey, take a step back first and go through this research process, this community inventories, learning about the community,
Yeah.
really considering these issues to make sure that, again, you're not jumping from one project to the next. See, a lot of times in EE, we'll propose, hey, let's do this random project or this random thing, or let's try this program or that program. And we go all in on it, and then it doesn't really pan out the way you'd want to. So you're spending a lot of time rushing from one project to the next, but never really considering, hey, is this actually making a difference? Is this a good use of our time and resources and energy?
Mhm.
Yeah, I like the focus on the root cause, because I think that's an easy one to go off of is, jumping right to
Let
what do we
me
want to do to fix it versus,
Yeah.
are we addressing the root cause so it doesn't keep happening again and again and again? So,
I'll pull up a slide for you all, and show you the root cause tree, because it's a fun activity too. This is the example that we show folks during the course of, so yeah, here we're in step 2, really getting into like, yeah, what is our issue? And this is a way you can do it virtually. This was on a Jamboard, which is going away sadly, but you can do this like on paper with young people.
mhm.
Um, and it's fun because it's cute and it's like a nice visual, and you can really lay out like, okay, well, here's our causes and our effects, and this is the real issue. Maybe it's poor drainage. Maybe it's we don't have funding for this.
Yep. Cool. I've got to jump off, but thank you very much, Kristen. This was really exciting to hear about. And Paul, I'm glad that you've gotten trained, and
Yeah.
I knew you were working with Xavier, but I wasn't sure, how the process you were using. So this is
Mhm.
helpful, and I could see a lot of potential with this with other high schools. I'm thinking of, I know my kids went to Nina High School and they're long
Yeah.
graduated now, but they have an environmental club, and it might
Oh,
be
nice.
interesting. We got it, like you said, we have to be careful on how much we take on, but I could see utilizing this process,
Absolutely.
as we grow across a number of schools. And even to your point, adults too. I mean,
Yeah.
it's going to work just as well.
Mhm.
It's well,
Yeah.
their focus is, middle schools in particular, but it works for all ages. And again,
Yeah.
Yeah.
like I was saying, I'm using practically this general process and trying to assess my
Yeah.
own things here.
No, it
So
makes a lot of
the general
sense. Yeah.
sense of approaching things.
Great. Well, thanks you guys for sharing it.
Yeah, thank
Yeah, thank you
you.
for joining.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Christian, I've got a question that might be especially applicable for people that might be watching this recorded,
Sure.
who might not be able
Mhm.
to, ask questions that they might be thinking of at that time. So if you could recommend, for people either who are here or for people watching this recorded, what would be a next step that you would recommend for people who want to, learn a little bit more about Earth Force? What would be, where do you guide them to go next?
Paul, you set me up so well here.
Perfect.
We are we are launching a brand new shiny online course imminently. So we're getting ready to launch our community of practice, which is going to be an online space where all sorts of Earth Force practitioners can come together, network with each other, find folks who are either nearby physically, geographically, or working on something similar, or working with the same grade band, or looking for advice. We're going to be launching our community of practice during EAC week, so here in a few weeks. And included in the community of practice is our EAC 101 course, which I think, Paul, are you helping us test that?
Yeah, I am signed. I haven't
Yeah.
actually started it yet, but I am signed up for it.
Cool. So that online course is totally at your own pace, self-directed, and that is kind of the first entry point into learning about Earth Force process and environmental action civics. And then from there, you can really take it in any direction that you need to. Whether you're a person, like an individual, someone more on the organizational level, or if you're a teacher, that's a good place to start. Or emailing me, and then my go-to, and then is setting up a call with me, talking through what your needs are, what is your position and your organization like, and kind of what ways can we support you. And again, that could look like taking our online course, getting enrolled in the synchronous Zoom trainings like Paul took that happen about 3 times a year. So we just wrapped one up last week, and a new group of folks will be starting about June. We're starting to plan for that. Or even better first step is going to earthforceresources.org, where folks can take a crack at our educator's guide, our quick starts, and see all of the resources associated with each step.
Nice. All right. Do any of our guests have any questions real quick? If not, I'll think if there are any common questions I can come up with. Pause a moment for that.
I've got a back pocket question too, if you don't, Paul.
Oh, go for it. I am not coming up
Sure.
with one right off the top of my head, so.
Question that we get all the time is, can I do this if I only see my young people once a month? Or what if I work at a summer camp and I only see my kids for 1 week and then I never see them again? Can I still do something like this? And the answer is yes. And sometimes it could look different depending on like what your time scale is, and like when exactly that like condensed time with your young folks is happening and what that's shaped like. Sometimes it can look like skipping straight to step 3. And although that means that the issue is already selected for young people, we try to do that in a way that makes sense for their environment. Something place-based, something really heavily inquiry-based, that will still have that bit of buy-in, and still a project that you can take on that's going to be developing those skills of like decision-making, leadership, organization, that you want your young folks to be developing anyway. I'll also make one final plug, is that we have a podcast where we talk through little niche topics like this, related to environmental education or environmental action civics, roughly every couple weeks, and that is hosted on our website. Thanks, Paige.
All right, so I'll probably go and wrap things up. Just for a final note, again, if you are interested in learning more about Earth Force in general and their process, feel free to email Kristen. I can include your email if that's all right, Kristen, and when I send out the link to this recording.
Cool.
Or it's right there in the comments too. Perfect.
Now it's right here. Yep.
And if you're interested in learning more about, what the Land Trust is doing, how we might be able to partner as far as applying this process on maybe more specific issues here in the local region, feel free to email me as well. You'll be able to do that when I send out the link to this recording, so you'll have my email address there. Or feel free to talk to both of us too, if you're not sure, who would be the most relevant person to talk to about moving, interested in collaborating on this or moving forward with any sort of idea of how we might do things. Email both and we'll just kind of go from there. All right.
Thanks for having me, Paul. I
Yeah,
appreciate
thanks for
it.
joining us, Kristen, and thank you for joining us as well, everyone. I'll be sending out this recording whenever it is done processing. which who knows how long that takes. It kind of varies from day to day. All right.